Hello and welcome to Cracked Open, a podcast guiding you on your journey to becoming a vessel of unconditional love. And this is your host, Beck Milonis, High Priestess, Channel, and Activator. Join me on this series as I share reflections, insights, and channel transmissions from my journey of walking the initiation path. Each episode is a unique transmission containing supportive frequencies to facilitate the deepest healing, activation, and reconnection with your soul. I invite you to open your mind and set the intention to receive this episode into your heart space. Let's go. Welcome back, beautiful souls, to another episode of Cracked Open, a podcast guiding you to becoming a vessel of unconditional love. Today here I have beautiful Loren Cellentani. I said that right, yeah? It's Italian, Cellentani.
Beautiful.
Yeah, who is a, you gotta do the hand movements, who is a dear sister of mine. I had the absolute honor and privilege of co-creating with Loren a couple months back on her podcast, Witchy Wellness Radio, and we were brought together. And it was beautiful the way that aligned, because then we went to continue to work together after that. And it was some powerful, amazing connection there, and very much on the same lineage, same kind of path. So I'm so excited to watch Loren step into her new trajectory that she's on, because I've seen her step into this and it's so fucking exciting. But to introduce her formally, Loren spent a good portion of her life feeling like a victim to her body and her emotions, but they were all leading her to heal the witch wound inside of her to guide others to do the same. She realized along the way to harness your sovereign power through the body, which allows you to be in your full feminine force. It is safe to be seen, led, and be your full self. Now Loren helps ambitious woo-woo women or woo women harness the power of their emotions to manifest their calling with passion and purpose with her monthly membership, The Sovereign Sisterhood, and her podcast, Witchy Wellness Radio. Her method incorporates breathwork, movement, and visualization to unleash your energy for you to reclaim unlimited power. So tell me, you've got a bit about your backstory here and how you got here. Tell me a little bit about this method and what brought you to this method and what your journey was like to get to this point now where you help women to do the same. Take it away.
Well,
Mike is
yeah,
yours.
thank you, sister, for having me on here. It's a deep honor, and yeah, how much time do we have? Because we can, dive deep. I think along the way, I was so driven to be the perfect person, perfect girl, getting the good girl, getting the good grades, getting a good job, always having that kind of spiritual side kind of inside of me. But I didn't really until my own starting awakening, my own dark night of the soul. But for my whole life, it was just like anytime my body, something wasn't working, horrible digestion, I would have just migraines after migraines as a young adult, paralyzing anxiety, all of these things. And I'm like, playing the victim card too. What I realize is, oh my God, my body's literally leading the way. It's not in the way. This is how I start to heal that witch wound inside of me. It's literally guiding me to the next step, to who I really am, until I started really understanding that, how our universe works, the feminine and masculine principles. We need that polarity, and in order to really understand the light, we got to understand what the darkness feels like too. So for me, I was into this work. I was health coaching a little bit, and I was in the middle of a relationship, actually divorce, where I realized I would love to point fingers at the other person and say, he did this, he's this kind of a person, blah blah blah. But I also knew that I do create my own reality, and this is a turning point, my Saturn return, for me to really take a look and say, okay, well, what is my reality reflecting back to me at this point? I need to take a look to love myself into transmuting and becoming that higher version of me, to becoming that witch version of me. And that's when I really got deep into, what does that look like in my life? How does that actually happen? And that's when I started my podcast, Witchy Wellness Radio. Is a witch for me is a woman who's sovereign in her own power. She understands how how to work with not only nature and the elements, but her own body and her emotions, and knows that, you know, that's not a part of her. It's just literally energy. It's the easiest way to harness energy in our body is our emotions, to be able to work with that and transmute and manifest, not only changing her reality, but to become that divine leader that we're all being called to do now. And a lot of us, myself included, like my mom was a huge feminist, you know, in her generation before us, like she had to really fight. That was like the big movement of like, she had to push to get high school sports. Like her school growing up, they didn't have any female sports, only males only. And just little things like that. And, you know, she went into the corporate world. She didn't get into medical school because they didn't really accept many females at the time. And just this fight, this almost this victimhood. So our generation was born, a lot of millennial women, feeling like we have to be, in order to succeed, stuck in this solar masculine go 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 structure all the time. And even though I know all of the woo, all of the stuff, we still kind of can get stuck in the I got to do more, the rushing energy, instead of allowing ourselves to become that vessel that, as a woman, we literally can create life and we can create whatever we want. And it just takes tapping into our body, slowing down and listening, because it's not like we have to change. It has not to be this huge process. It's really can be so simple of just tuning into our breath, moving our body just so we can focus, because we get so caught up in the future, we get so caught up in the past, and all of that power that we're searching for is already here. We just really learning to focus and allow ourselves to understand it's safe to be present, it's safe to be in our body, it's safe to lead, it's safe to be seen. And that's the other side of the witch wound, which I'm sure we will jump way more into. Yeah, I think that's a good start from where you ask.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's so many little pieces in here. I'm like, where do I take this now? I love how, you know, your whole message and your brand and your what you're bringing into this world is about like there is wisdom in that body, and that's what a witch is. And I love how you define that to me, because I'd never heard it be defined in that way of like that power comes from us, like essentially knowing and feeling ourselves, and the capacity to feel our body and our emotions and all these things that we're taught not to. And so I see, for me, I see this very tactical, how we've been condemned and shunned, and you're too emotional, and you're this and you're that. When really the core and that sovereignty and that peace of being a witch is like having that ownership over our body and our emotions, and being able to use those things as signposts. So to someone who is like, I talk a lot about victimhood on here because it's something that I've really had to deal with as well. What would you say to someone who is really struggling with their body, or they're struggling with their emotions, and they're almost being victimized by them? Like, how can they begin to use them in a positive way to guide them to like what's not in alignment, and begin to release and see them with compassion rather than wanting to push them away, or this is not comfortable, or, you know, I know a lot of people with health issues who are, they feel really fucking victimized by it, rather than seeing it as an invitation to listen to their body or whatever that is. So just riff on that for a moment if that feels good
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah, my first thought is, and listen, like this still comes up for me. Like this past week, pre-period, during my period, some, you know, the victim can come up, the fear can come up, whatever the cycle is teaching me that month. And I got stuck in a little bit of victim anger the other day. So I know when we're in it, whether it's a short blip of energy coming up, or if it's just really tied to our current state of being, that a lot of the practices, like, oh, I know the yoga might help, or breath work, or all these things, I know what I could be doing, but it's really about learning into tuning in what feels best for you, and kind of, you know, law of attraction, Abraham 101, simple stuff. We're just really searching for relief. You know, maybe if you are so focused and feeling victimized by your body, maybe watching a funny TV show, which isn't, people might not think is super spiritual, but something just to get your mind. It's like this dog that wants to like keep gnawing at something it shouldn't be eating. and just allowing yourself, like I said earlier, to be safe in the current state, to be safe in being present. And it can be something spiritual like breath work or meditation, but it also can be a chocolate chip cookie, something that's not related to what you are so sucked into. Because once a victimhood, wherever it's our body, chronic illness, it can become so much of your identity that you identify with, that that program in our minds and our body is just like on repeat, on repeat, on repeat. So really whatever we can do when we begin to notice it to kind of get us out of it, something unrelated, kind of breaking that program. Sometimes I just like to if I'm doing something and I feel something come up, it's like, okay, I have a choice in this moment. Am I going to keep believing those thoughts in my head, or am I going to do something completely different? And a lot of times I just get up and go for a walk, because getting outside for me, getting into the sun and just literally moving can kind of help me start to move and process that energy. Because once we start to tune in to really what's underneath the victimhood, what are these belief systems? What is this energy that's stuck inside of us really telling us? And a lot of the times it's just trying to keep us in that state because that's what it knows. And that's quote unquote safe. So anytime we try to change, anytime we do try to do something different, or we are kind of coming up or past that upper limit in our life and in our bodies, some of the victimhood, those manifestations physically, emotionally are going to pop up, even if you think you've healed something, because it's just literally a computer running this program saying, all right, this is what we know how to keep ourselves safe. And in the same program, and this groundhog say, not because it hates you, not because anything bad, it's just like warning, we're going outside of the normal. So we can begin to kind of go general, doing something differently, and start to talk to ourselves, talk to our body, thanking it for telling us this, thanking it for getting us to where we are now, and understanding that it's literally guiding us, telling us that we are growing. We are doing the work. It is working, because every single thing, one of the easiest mantras, beliefs that really helps me no matter what state I'm in, is everything is always working out for me. Every single thing, it just keeps getting better and better. Even when I think I'm going through the darkest night of the soul, I know there might be another one, but I always know in the long term, everything is working out, everything is coming to me, and I don't have to strive to be something that I'm not. I don't have to, out of desperation or need or rush, to go anywhere. I am this vessel, I am this magnetic force, that everything in my life comes to me, and everything good that stays and upgrades, like it came to me. It came to me a few weeks ago. I decided, oh, I want to start teaching yoga again, and I haven't really. We moved down here almost a year ago, and I haven't taught yoga. I haven't really gone to yoga studios. And about a month ago, I in a meditation was like, oh my god, I would love to go to some like in-person events. I love meeting people online. I love connecting, but oh, would it be so nice to meet like-minded souls? And I found this sound healing bath that I went to. Amazing. It was at a yoga studio. I was talking with the owner and just saying, I miss going to the studio. I love practicing. I teach this kind of yoga. And she offers me a job on the spot. Just right there. I didn't ask her anything. But I knew, oh my gosh, it kept coming. It literally came to me. So that must mean I'm ready. And a lot of time, especially, spiritual seekers, like we want to tap into our higher self. We want to like have the awakening. We want to have an out of body experience. We want to move our energy, awaken our kundalini, all this stuff. And it's like we're seeking and striving for more and more and more. And sometimes like it can be overwhelming when we do get all that energy coming through. And anytime I have like a spiritual experience or more 3D muggle experiences, I tell myself that I only allow what I'm ready for. Like whatever is coming up for me, whether it is something like victimhood or if it's something like manifesting a yoga teaching job or a partner, something beautiful, that I allow, my body allows everything that I am ready for. And that's including the victimhood mentality, because once we realize that we're actually in it, that's when we can actually start to heal and change and grow and really start our journey.
So many things that you said in there was so juicy. I'm seeing myself, like I said to you before I got in this thing, I'm having a bit of a tantrum at the moment of that victimhood of the fucking previous state coming up again. And it's because I've reached this new level, and it's a new level of trust and faith as well, of like, I've let go of a lot of like fear around money and being supported and all this. And it's like I haven't lived in this way where I've been so fucking trusting in my life, like where I've had people freaking out about money all around me, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to freak out. I trust. And something kind of shifted in me a couple of days ago where more, it's like more of the deeper stuff of not trusting and the fear and the whatever the fuck that is, that started to come up. And I love how you reframed, like the good stuff that you're ready for will come in, but also the deeper layers of the stuff that you need to transmute will come in, because we think that, well, the good stuff's not showing up, but all this other stuff is showing up. So maybe I'm not ready, or maybe, you know, there's resistance. And it's like, yeah, but like also you're reaching these deeper layers within yourself because you're ready to transmute them. And I fucking love that. I also want to say the impatience and the frustration and the wanting to control is so coded within us, of like what you said is completely true. And I've seen this so many times in my path and my journey. I haven't had to seek for anything. Like clients have landed on my doorstep, soulmates have showed up randomly, like the next thing has always presented itself when I was ready. But it's like, can you have that trust and that faith that it's coming, even if you can't see the evidence, even if nothing's working, even if it appears that you're going backwards, whatever that stuff is. And that's a constant practice for me. And so it's like, as I'm moving through this new level, I'm noticing I'm being called into even deeper levels of trust and faith, of like, even though it literally appears like things are moving backwards for me, like financially, whatever that is, can I still trust and hold that faith that what's going to come in, I might not even know what that is. Like, I don't even know, I don't have the framework of understanding. And it gets to be easy and it gets to just show up, and I don't have to try so fucking hard. So I love that. I think we've been really conditioned in this masculine paradigm to have to force things. And I think when you have a really big vision, and for me, I see the trajectory, and like you, I see this vision of what I'm here to create and what my highest potential is, which is one of the fucking problems of being so psychic, is you can see all the potentials, including the highest ones, and you're like, why aren't I there? Right. But there's this impatience or frustration of like, I'm here and I know that I'm going here, but like I can't, my brain can't comprehend how I'm going to get from here to here. And I know that there's this big journey. But how can I show up in every moment, trusting that somehow it's going to guide me to that next thing, and trusting that, you know, I'll get everything that I need along the journey to get there. And maybe it won't all be at once because it's a lot and I need to go through this process of preparation, but it's leading me there. So I love that. Like, that's one of my mantras as well, of like, I always get what I'm ready to receive. And I'm always like, it's always working out for me, and everything that I want is coming. So I love that. And that's really beautiful. The question I want to ask is, you know, this victimhood, because we know that it relates to this witch wound, right? So I would love to know for you, I think we need to go into the witch wound, why so many of us who have these gifts, we have this purpose, we have this mission, we're these healers, whatever that is, why we carry so much of this trauma. Like, I've done whole workshops around the witch wound, and I think it's something we really need to unpack here, of like, that victimhood that you're experiencing that's coming up is not just the conditioning from this life. Like, it's such a deep program in us of victim, right? And that victim state is real, and it's a part of us that needs to be brought into integration and seen and held and loved. And it's like we almost come up against it every new layer of being seen or receiving more abundance, or, you know, stepping into something that's more aligned, it comes up for us. So talk to me about this process of how that witch wound has come up for you, and what you've uncovered along the journey of, you know, where it's come from. And I know you've said that you've gone through huge states of like having to purge it, and the emotions that have come up as a result of that.
Yeah. Oh my God, where to freaking start? uh, I think, you know, for me, the thing that it's popping in my head, so I have to share it. When I was still married, I knew things were kind of, the more I was in my power, the less the relationship worked. And this was kind of the intro to my own witch wound. And I was literally reading a book called Witch by I think Lisa Lester, Witch Unapologetically Untamed or something like that, on this airplane. And my ex at the time said, why don't you read a book on how to be a better wife instead of reading a book on how to be a witch? And I knew in that moment the lifetimes of anger and being burnt at the stake, like it was just flaming through me. But I also knew that it was calling me up to really embody who I really am here to be called to be. And the witch wound for me, a lot of us, like, we have all these gifts. We want to help humanity. We might have something like a psychic gift, spiritual gift, just helping people heal. We want to give back, but we start to really come up against ourselves, being scared to be seen, to talk about it. Even before the show, we actually manifested last week. We were supposed to record this, and Beck checked in, and she was like, some spirit was telling me it wasn't today. And I was like, thank God. Thank Goddess, because I was coming up against myself today, just shifting in my own self and speaking my own truth from more general manifestation to like divine feminine leadership, and really going even deeper in to that spiritual side of things has brought up more of this witch wound of me. And it's like, well, what, like, in this lifetime, what am I so scared of? What am I really scared of? Like, I know before things have happened in past lives, I'm sure. I've had regressions, whether I was a witch or not, that are painful, for speaking my truth, for being really who I am. But it, just like I said at the beginning, like, we get to transmute all of this. So in this lifetime, so many of us are in a safe place in our lives where we can do this inner work, where we can be seen and speak our truth and step further and further and further into our sovereign selves, and and just be that in the world without any fear of being persecuted for it and actually dying. And I think right now it's like all this stuff is coming up for us to heal. Just like I started talking about, our body is not in the way, it's leading the way. So is the witch wound. So is the witch wound. And, I left my corporate job of 10 years, end of last year. And whew, I thought I was ready. I did all the inner work. I'm going to jump in. Like, let's freaking go, witches. And I had a huge, just like dark night of the soul release, super normal for energy to have like a kundalini release in my body when I'm working through stuff. I had it, and all of this fear kept coming up. Fear, just sheer terror, laying in bed, just feeling just like the shock wave of fear, the emotion. Anything in my current life that I could possibly worry about or have anxiety about was just shooting up emotionally, up and up and up. And I knew that this was literally my body purging. And after that, for 2 weeks, I couldn't get out of bed physically because I was so sick. And all of this deep gunk, dense crap was coming up because it was ready to come up, because I was stepping so much further into the light. All this stuff has to come up, because if we think about it vibrationally, energy is always going to match up. So, of course, when we're being seen, of course, when we step more into our sovereign power, something's going to come up for us to heal into the light because it's ready. And I know so many of us feel that calling inside of ourselves, but there's a difference between feeling calling and doing nothing, or feeling the calling and really doing the work, which for me is alignment, is remembering who we really are, that no matter what's coming up, it doesn't matter if you put all this into the real world or if you just do this work for you. And that's a lesson I'm learning. Is I asked myself last night, I was kind of going through what was coming up with me for this past cycle, and if I had if I had multiple sources of income, I didn't have to worry about being supported or what. I am completely supported. Would I be doing the same things in my life? Would I be doing it in a different energy? That was the real question. So it's really about, okay, we see this witch wound, we see ourselves wanting to hide, but how can we love it? How can we reparent it and tell ourselves that no, this, you are safe? How can we be calm in our power? How calm and relaxed in our power can we be? And that's actually my mantra this year. Last year I started going to a cold tub with my partner, and it's a little bit above freezing water, and you really have to focus and be present. And no matter what emotional state you're in, it you can't bring it in the tub because you are so present, just relaxing your body. You want to tense up into a tiny ball and just hold on to any chance of heat that you have left. But the more that you can relax, open your focus, allow your energy to open up, the more I can literally feel my energy, my chakras opening up, and that tube of light just expanding into life itself. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, how relaxed can I be in my power? Because we think we're so stuck in this masculinity paradigm of go, 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 do, more. That, no, 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 no. Like we said before, relaxed in my power means everything comes to me. So it was a little bit of a tangent on the witch wound, but that was that was
So many
what's
things
going
were
on.
happening while you were talking. That's why I was like smiling. But firstly, I agree with the ice bath thing. I do ice baths and they're fucking amazing for that. Like it's the same thing. I enter this fully orgasmic state. I mean, I do 15
Yeah.
minutes at like 4 degrees. And people don't understand how the fuck you can do that. They're like, that's crazy. But for me, it's like it gets me into my body, it gets me into the sensation. The other thing that happened, and I was very distracted while you were talking because I was like Googling what does it mean? Because I knew it was a fucking sign. We had here on my window, it's not happened once as you were talking about this massive thing that you went through and all that transmutation. I had a rainbow lorikeet come onto the windowsill and it was making a lot of, crazy, right? And so I Googled rainbow lorikeet, get this. Rainbow lorikeets are a powerful affirmation of transformation and the transcendence of negativity, of crossing boundaries and venturing into the unknown. For, like you can't, and it was there and it was like, and I was like trying really hard to focus, but I was like, fuck, this is a sign. I have to talk into it, right? So it's that all of everything that you said is so valid and true. I want to like, there's a few things in the witch room that I want to unpack a little bit. It's that fear of like, yes, it's very accurate in saying that in this lifetime, we're not going to get birds at the stake. We're not going to get killed. We're not going to get hung. We're not going to get murdered. And so dealing with all of that as it comes up. But the other part of it that I've seen of that victim is I have given everything to this fucking path, right? I have done everything. I have served. I have helped people. I've shown up. That's what's coming up for me. That's why I want to speak into another thread of it. Because I feel like there's so many ways we can go with this, but it's like I have devoted myself. I just wanted to help. I was helping all these people and this is what happened to me. So that resistance that comes up is partially as well, like, why the fuck should I? Every time I've been in my power, it hasn't gone well for me. So why should I? Right? Like, I don't want to. I don't trust anymore. I've lost my faith. I've lost the trust in this path. And so it's that as well, because ultimately that wound brings us closer to God. It brings us closer to our trust, our faith. So that's the next level of it that I'm coming into. At the start, it was very much like fear of being seen, fear of people attacking me or being cancelled or being hung, burned, hurt, whatever it is, of being in my power. Once I transmuted that, I was like, yeah, it's safe for me to be in my fucking power and I want to be in my power. But the next level was like, why do I want to be in my power? Like, why do I want to help people? Why do I want to show up and do this again? Because it hasn't gone so well for me historically in in all the incarnations I've had. So it's almost like this, fuck you, God. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Right. And so that's why many of us don't step into it, because we're like, what's in it for me anymore to do this? Like, I'm tired. This is exhausting. It requires so much. It's this constant fucking journey where I feel like, and I'm now just speaking into all the stuff that's been coming up because I feel like there's people who are going to resonate with this. It feels like when you're on this path, it's like infinite. The amount of shit that comes up that you have to deal with, and it's this never ending cycle of frustration sometimes. And then obviously expansion and then frustration, but we're always brought back to that, the next level of whatever it is, the next upper limit that we come through. That frustration comes back of like, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere, right? Like, I feel like I've given so much and I have nothing to show for it. Or maybe we're slow moving on our path. And it's like the message that just keeps coming through for me is like, can you trust? Can you trust that you will call the stuff in? Can you trust that you're always being supported? Can you trust that you don't have to do all the fucking things? Like, you don't. Like, there is a force that will support you to get all the stuff that you need to get on your journey, to support you to be financially sovereign or whatever that is, so you can continue to do it. Like, can you trust that you have something within you that is aligned to that, that like you have that capacity to call it in? And it's not that we have to do it, it's just we have to receive it, right? So can you shift from trying to make the things happen to a state of being where you allow the things to happen? So it's not even about doing anymore. Like, we used to have this, I have to do all the things and I have to take the action, so then the people come in, or I have to show up every day online, or I have to fucking, there's this old paradigm which is breaking in our industry, which needs to break, where we move into this more feminine way, which is the me showing up in my beingness and doing the thing that feels good for me to do, right? So for you, it was going to a singing bowl thing. For me, it's been focusing on my podcast, whatever that is, trusting that where the energy wants to go in that moment is the aligned step. And like, you don't need to fucking know how it's going to bring in the stuff. And it's not even your job to figure out the how or to align the things. Like, if we think about the amount of cosmic threads and people and different guides and beings and whatever the fuck timelines have to merge. And like, in fact, I want to ask, because I know it's an interesting story about how you met your current partner, the things that had to fucking align for that shit to take place. And I've seen this with every soulmate, like the crazy things that had to fucking align. So for instance, I have to tell this story because it's crazy. One of my soulmates who I met in Mexico, I had to get out of a fucking relationship. Firstly, I had to travel to Costa Rica in the middle of a pandemic, freaking out to meet the person that I met in Costa Rica. I had to get COVID for 2 weeks really badly in Costa Rica. I'm going to explain why. I then had to decide to go to meet my friend in Mexico. I then had to get my fucking test back as positive for COVID. So I couldn't get on a flight back to Sydney, to then have to go to Tulum, right? Like 5 things already that were huge. And there were other things in the background weaving. I had to go to a certain place at a certain day, download a certain app to come into contact with this person. And then when that person came into my life, I had to release resistance to see him for what he was and have this experience. Like, so like crazy. Like, I had to fucking go through all this shit that was orchestrated and get out of the way and just be like, and every one of those moments I had to be like, okay, I trust that even though this is really shitty and I don't want to be here and I just want to go home and whatever it is, I trust my soul to show me what's the alignment, like why is this happening and how is it serving me? The things that have to take place for us to be guided. So if a client comes in, right, into your random inbox, the rabbit hole they had to go down on the internet to find you through some fucking YouTube video, whatever it was, right? The things that align to think, so that our purpose, our mission, our people that come into our life, whatever that is, has to align for us. Like, I would love for you to tell the story, because it's like, this proves to us, right? Like, if it's hard for you to believe this, when you're trying to control from this human level of like, I'm going to figure out all the details and take all the actions and the steps, it's like, how can we possibly figure that out from the level of our ego and our mind? How can we? There's this genius underneath everything, which is that life force that we know how to harness and move through us, that guides us to these things. And it's like, if we're trying to do it all, we miss out on how fucking good it could be, right? Because we're trying to control it. And so this is for myself as well. I'm like, Beck, chill, you got this. But like, I would love to hear that story, because I know that it was crazy for you as well, like how that all
Yeah.
kind of came into.
Yeah. And for me, before I jump into there, it's like I like having a list. I call it my trusted truths. You know, some people can call it their pit kit. When we're in the low, we're doubting, remember everything's working out, and write down even the smallest little synchronicities or the big ones, just so you can go back to when you're frickin' in it, when you forget that you're the creator, when you forget there's miracles happening all around you. It's there. So for me,
I call it proof of magic, or like proof
proof
of
of magic,
like evidence, proof of magic. I
yes.
literally did this the other day. I was like freaking out about money, and I'm like, fuck, I'm going back to Bali. I haven't like been making money. And I had to sit down, and I was like, there has been 10 times in the past 4 years where this exact situation has happened. And I had to list every single time where I was like on my ass broke, things weren't moving, and then it shifted. And like
Yeah.
the things that aligned. And I do this. I'm like, this is how many times, evidence brain, like,
Yeah,
because we have to
we
do that
do.
sometimes to remind ourselves. Sorry to interrupt, but I was like, yeah, proof
No,
of
no,
magic. It's a
it is,
beautiful
and
way to do it.
it's so easy, but it's so impactful because we can get so, you know, when we're in this elevated state and we're connected and everything aligned, we're like, oh my gosh, this is who we really are. And then when we're and the shit of it, the dark night of the soul, for a long period of time, short period of time, doesn't matter. Like, we literally forget everything. That's what I like. That's what my
And we
victimhood
feel
dark night of the soul.
abandoned.
We
Yeah, we
feel
feel
abandoned.
abandoned. Yeah. And
So
we're like,
just to
I'm in this
have,
alone. Yeah. And you're fucking not. They're just quiet because you need to go through that experience. And you're like, why aren't you giving me the fucking, tell me what the step is? And they're like over there, zip their mouths and they're like, babe, you need to go through this and we'll tell you the step when you're over your little meltdown. But like, yeah, you
no,
forget. And in those moments,
yeah.
you're like, I'm so alone. I'm not supported. God has abandoned me. It's not working out. And you just have to bring yourself back. So, yeah, totally, completely
Mm,
relate to that because I'm going through it right now. So,
yeah.
absolutely.
So how, I mean, our stories are like, of like, where to start here? Center ground. So my body, I was into all of this work, and COVID happened, things shifted, and at home all the time, really all of my ego, all of that dark, dense energy was coming up. And I wasn't really realizing it at the time, especially creatively. And like my first three centers were really just getting awoken, and all this shit was coming up in relationships and sexually. Things were just popping up. And my body came up with, I noticed my body received a physical diagnosis. And I was like, oh my God, I understand what's going on. Like, to me, the reality was like, it's happening for me. Yes, you can jump into the fear of whatever diagnosis, whatever your body is happening. But for me, I'm like, okay, this is my body, this is my soul calling me up. So it threw me out of freaking left field. I knew I needed to do something differently. I knew it. And I had been so called to do breath work, and I'd started doing early that year. I joined a program so I could really just commit to me and go all in and just really learn how to move this energy, because I knew everything was coming up, because I was ready to heal, I was ready to shift. And if I kept doing the same things, living the same life I was living, that's what my body was manifesting. That's what was going to happen to me. So that was a really empowering moment for me to make that decision. And of course, the decision is always greater than the decision, or than the energy that created the situation. So I come into learning this beautiful container, knowing all well, I am ready to let go of, I am ready to change whatever I need to do if I feel called to do it, and let go of everything. And I was in a relationship at the time too. And a few months in, like I know I knew my current partner because he was in a kind of a sister program to what I was in online, doing the work. Cool, another guy my age is doing the work. Awesome. Didn't think anything else about it. And the hosts were having um, a breathwork retreat in Florida a few months ahead of time, and I was like, oh my God, I have to go. I know I have to go to this retreat. I've in-person retreats, I've been to meditation retreats, meditated with thousands of people before. I know how powerful the group energy can be, and they pair you up with a partner. So you have this default self list, or this ego list of things that when you're not in your aligned state come up, like thoughts, beliefs, emotions, your body symptoms, and you submit this anonymously, and you get paired up with somebody who has a similar default self or ego as you do. And lo and behold, we've actually figured out that we were partners before the retreat, because I ended up saying something on a call exactly worded like my statement that I sent to them. And my partner goes, literally on a Zoom call, looks at me in the eyes and goes, I think you're my partner. And that's all he says. And I'm like, okay, not thinking it was for the retreat. Let's fast forward to the retreat 2 weeks before. I had horrible anxiety. My face was breaking out worse than puberty. My whole body was breaking out with acne everywhere. I almost didn't go. I felt like my world was tipping upside down. I didn't know what was happening. Decided to go. The morning before I left, I had a dream that I'd broken up with my boyfriend at the time, and I was so confused. I was like, why am I doing this? And weeks before, I kept having dreams about this masculine energy. Sometimes I knew who it was, but this masculine energy always coming into the dream and pulling my hand and leading me another direction. And I'm like, what is going on? So I get to the retreat and I finally meet my partner in person. And the second I saw him in person, my heart was beating outside of my chest. And I just knew, like, it was just like an instant connection. And the synchronicities that unfolded through that week, we saw shooting stars together outside at night, just all these different alignment. His middle name is Loren, spelled Loren, like my first name. And in this program, it's a beautiful kind of like sacred school, and you have a chosen name. And I had a different chosen name before I went to the retreat. And after the retreat, after manifesting this soulmate, I was like, this is a new energy. This is a new me. And I'm like, how can I further step into my own sovereign being energy, sovereignty? Ugh. And so I was looking up names that mean sovereignty and reading all these beautiful feminine sounding names. And I get to Isis. And I knew she was an Egyptian goddess, but I'm just like, that's it. The other names sound pretty, but like clear, full body, that is my name. And so that was my new name, Isis. I actually have a little necklace with an eye on it for Isis. And so lo and behold, I find out my partner's chosen name was Genesis Osiris. He goes by Geo. And Osiris also is a god of sovereignty. And I knew that. And I was like, okay, but I feel like there's more of a connection there. And I searched it. And I was like, oh my God, of course. How did I forget? Isis and Osiris were married. Isis brought Osiris back from life, and they had their baby was Horus, which is a symbol for the third eye. And all these beautiful synchronicities, our birthdays, our numbers are
Full body chills, by the way. It's
full,
just like
just
literally my whole body is like, ah!
our birthdays. My birthday is 12/20, December 20th, and his birthday is January 22nd, which is 0122. So if you took the 0 and put it before, it's his birthday. If you move the 0 to the end, it's my birthday. And we see repeating 122s wherever we go. It is our sign. I was rewatching this past week a TV show, Ted Lasso. If anybody hasn't seen it, it's so beautiful. It's on Apple TV, heartwarming story. And I'm watching it last night, and just because I felt so called to watch something funny, like I mentioned early in this episode. And I start the next episode. I'm like, all right, this feels good. I'm going to do one more episode. This feels really aligned, and I'm going to go to bed. And I look up, and behind, right next to the main character, Ted Lasso, the two lockers that are next to each other in this locker room are the numbers 1 and 22 next to each other. And I'm like, of course. And I'm like, you know what? That's all I need to watch. I only watched 3 seconds of an episode, turned it off, and I'm like, that's all my higher self wanted to show me. So big story. There's so much more to it's just like such an in-depth story. But what do you do when you have all of these like beautiful synchronicities and alignments and like miracles happen in front of your eyes? Well, you're going to forget them, just like we said. And we need to go back to remembering that. So this was back in April, and like being together since then is really working through, for me, a deeper side of this witch wound. Being able to trust the trust, being able to trust the masculine, not only in myself, but with him. And so that has been such a beautiful journey for me to remember that, oh my God, it's safe to be seen. It's safe to open my heart and be vulnerable with him and allow this anger to come up and out, because like I don't need to control everything. I can lead myself, and I can be led. And that that, if you're overly your masculine, can be triggering too. But it's just been this beautiful unfolding that we really realize, like, there's my inner being, his inner being, and it really does feel like there's an us inner being or higher being that's guiding us individually and together. And to be able to remember, like, I didn't go searching for a soulmate or a partner, it came to me. So whenever something comes up into my life, it's coming up because it's ready to come up, whether, like we said, it's the miraculous things that we want or things that we maybe don't want, the lack, the worthiness, the whatever. But it's just a reminder that like life can be this magical, and all the things that happen to get us to that point to get together, like I don't even want to begin to we can't comprehend that. Like you were just saying your short stories, like you can't it's going to take we as a human brain we can't comprehend that. So actually learned this from him. His intentions lately is, how can I let go of the steering wheel? How can I let go and trust the process even more in our relationship with the other person, with life, with myself, the universe? How can we trust the trust? That's what I have been really tuning into. How can I trust the trust? Um, so yeah, that is a little snippet into our story,
I
and
love it. Yeah,
it's
so
still
magical.
unfolding every day.
Yeah, it's so magical. And that piece of the trusting the masculine, I talk a lot of, I'm not going to get into it because
Yeah.
I've there's been like 5, 6 episodes where I've already gone into depth about this, but I've
Yes.
noticed as well the same thing happening for me, not in one partner, but I've had many masculine kind of beings come in to help me to heal more of that, like in community, in not community, in connection, in relating, and whatever that is. And it's like trusting too that the pieces for your healing will come in at the right time. Like it's like there's this wisdom that's guiding us to the circumstances of what's showing up in our life to heal whatever is ready, right? So it's not like we don't have to even guide where that healing is going to be or what's going to come up. And for me, I noticed it's always coming up along the lines of collective, like things that are happening in the collective, things that are happening for me. And then I check in with other, witches and healers and priestesses, and they're moving through similar stuff and the themes. And I'm like, how is it that this random soulmate has just shown up at the perfect fucking timing to help bring up all the stuff that is needing to be transmuted for my next level? So it's super powerful. And I've definitely feel a lot better even just from this conversation and the lorikeet and all the things. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Like it's so easy to forget though. It's so easy to get caught up in our human stuff and feel lost and afraid. And it doesn't need to be like that. Like we can feel supported even in the shit, right? So if you're going through this and this is something that you're moving through and you're feeling frustrated, and I, depending on when this comes out in March, we have all this energy. I just had this woman on talking about astrology about all the stuff that's going to come up in March. So maybe if you're reflecting back on March because it's already been, think about all the things that were cleared and that came up in perfect timing and synchronicity for you to move through whatever it was. Because like I say, you're not being punished, you're being prepared, right? Like whatever you have asked for, whatever unfolding is happening is to prepare you to receive whatever that is. So I love that. I'm just going to tune in and see if there's any more threads. If I'm feeling pretty complete, but is there anything else you would like to add or like weigh in on before we start to wrap this up?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's just trusting the process, trusting the trust. And if you're in it, if you're in the victimhood, that's okay. I think for me, it's really being able to love all of me and knowing that that's not who I really am, and it's not going to last. We will forget, and it's just literally us remembering more and at a different level. And the one constant is always going to be change.
Yeah, I love that. And it's almost like people forget that, because you've had a couple of good weeks or you've been feeling super aligned and amazing. Like I have been, like, honestly, weeks of just like, fuck, everything's blowing up and I feel so good and all this magic is happening. And then you have this moment of like, you revert for a second and you forget that it's like it's always going to happen, and you're always going to be guided to the next thing. And don't resist it, right? Stop like trying to get out of it when you're in it and just be like, well, I'm here now and I'm okay with what's showing up. And I trust that there's medicine in this too. So many podcasts at the start of the series that you can go back and listen to if you're needing that reassurance and that reminder. But I love that beautiful reminder for all of us to just keep trusting, and just even when it seems shitty and you feel disconnected, to bring yourself back to how many times have I been supported? How many times has it all worked out? Like, can I zoom out and see that this is all leading me back and inviting me into more love? And so for me, I've said this before, but one of my mantras, or one of the things that I try and invite myself into every day when I'm going through this stuff, is like, I just pray and I say, can you help me to bring myself back to love? Or how can I see this in the eyes of love? Or where is there an invitation for me to let go of some stuff and be even more aligned with love? And that's the truth. Like, this is just love knocking on our door every time this stuff comes up. to soften and open even more, to trust even more, to allow ourselves to be guided even more. Because I look at like even now where I'm and how I'm handling what I'm in now. If this was me a year ago, like I would be in such a fucking different mental state about it. Like the amount of growth that I've had to be sitting here, and yeah, there's a bit of panic and there's a bit of that stuff coming up, but like I'm just so detached compared to where I've been in the past. And so it's like every time you get there, you're a little bit more equipped to deal with it because you've gone through it so many times. And it's that reminder of like, you're never given more than what you can handle. If you're going through some stuff, it's because you're ready for it. All the cliches and things that I talk about all the time, but they're just so important to remind yourself. So thank you for this beautiful conversation. I definitely feel a lot more light and like trusting and more just like, fuck it. It's going to be whatever it needs to be, right? Because the truth is as well, like I have to say, all the things that we worry about most of the time, looking back, we're like, why was I even worrying about that? It sorted itself out. Like every time, it's just things aligned. So I love that. If people want to find you and work with you or join your Sovereign Sisterhood membership, how can they find you?
Yeah, so thank you again, Beck, for having me on. It was awesome to co-create with you on here. You can find me online at Loren Cellentani. I'm sure it'll be in the notes on Instagram and on YouTube as well. My podcast that Beck was also on is called Witchy Wellness Radio. And literally the motto is your body and emotions are not in the way, they are leading the way. And that's what we talked about today, is all of what the show was all about with beautiful guests like Beck. And I have a new membership called the Sovereign Sisterhood that's like an alignment membership. So how can we as a community support each other on this mission to become those super attractors, to be present and trust the trust? And not only is it community, but it's a monthly practice under 20 minutes of just alignment, breath work, and visualization for us just to get back into the body, for us just to slow down, to get into the receiving mode, because it's really as simple as just allowing ourselves to listen and becoming the vessel. We sometimes like to overcomplicate it. So my intention is really something simple and practical that we can do in the morning or throughout the day for us to really remember who we are. Like I said, being relaxed in our power. It's not about doing more and, just this huge masculine energy. It's about integrating and balancing both and allowing all of that to come to you, because the only work, I have to remind myself this daily, the work is the alignment. The work is trusting the trust. The work is the process unfolding in front of us, and not actually taking all of the 3D steps and doing all the things. It's about really tuning into our process and our own energy.
I love that. And I would definitely go check out the podcast that we co-created on your series as well, because it's great. And it really goes into this witch wound on other different kind of levels, but it was really, really powerful. So check that one out as well. Thank you so much for being here, my love. It's been such a pleasure to connect with you again and to also work with you and just have you in my vortex. It's so good. It's like a true sister. We've definitely done this shit before in many mystery schools. I know that is clear. Thank you everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed this, hit us up with a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, like, send this to a friend. And remember, you are always so supported. You are always taken care of. Can you lean back and allow yourself to receive? I feel like that is the message for today. Until next time, beautiful souls, I love you. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cracked Open. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share with a friend if this episode has served you in any way. For more information about the work that I do or to get in touch with me, read the show notes or head to beckmylonis.com. Until next time, beautiful soul.